A very good evening to all and welcome to Guide IAS. I am Tamanna Sharma, your host for today's session on 100-day strategy for prelims 2021 with Mr. Prasad Shinde, IEFS. Before we start the session, I would like to tell you all a bit about Guide IAS, which is a platform for UPSC aspirants which provide guidance and weekly live sessions with officers. We are also running a Telegram group where we provide notes and relevant material for UPSC. And we also have serving officers as a part of a group which provide the strategy that how we have to efficiently use this particular note, these particular material or notes. We also have a YouTube channel and the link for the same is in our bio. You can all go over there and check that what our channel is providing you all with. As we also know that building, a building is strong when the foundation is strong. So for cracking UPSC, NCERT is the foundation. And for the same, we have started an NCERT foundation course. And the last thing which I would like to tell you all is that from 15th March 2021, we are starting a 100-day self-study plan specially designed by our officers for all the UPSC aspirants. And you can DM us to know more about all of this. So now I would be adding Sir and he'll be joining us soon. Good evening, Sir.
Hello, good evening. Am I audible?
Sir, am I audible to you?
Yes, you are audible. Am I audible as well? Yeah.
Yes, sir, you are absolutely audible.
Okay. So how do we go about this?
So first of all, I'll be introducing you to all our followers and our audience. Then, sir, we'll be starting with the session. I'll be asking some questions to you, and you may answer them according to your what you want to tell about that particular thing.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do this.
So,
Yeah.
sir, may I start?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So Babe Ruth rightly said that it is hard to beat a person, who never gives up. And my dear audience, today we have with us such a person, the person with such spirit, Mr. Prasad Shinde, IFS, who believes that there is no alternative to hard work. He has been through mains thrice and he made it into Indian Forest Service initially with an All India rank of 10. But as he was determined for Indian Foreign Services, he made through it with an All India rank of 287. And currently, he is an officer trainee in Indian Foreign Service of batch 2020 at Sushma Swaraj Institute of Indian Foreign Service. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. It's a pleasure to host you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, sir, may we start with the questions?
Yeah. Before we start, I just for all the aspirants over here.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Just giving a bit of background on myself. I'm from Mumbai, and I have done my BSc in biotechnology from Mumbai University and MSc in biotechnology from University of Ulster, Northern Ireland. and I started this journey in 2015. Now, one thing I want to make clear with everyone. See, it's not easy to clear this in the very first attempt. Now, for me, it was like I did not decide upon UPSC during my graduation days. It just came across suddenly as an option when I completed my MSc and I wanted to do my PhD. I was not sure. I did not even know about what is civil services back then. So I'll be very honest about it. In Mumbai, what we have, the guidance for the UPSC, the what we say in Hindi as Mahol in Mumbai, it's not that much for UPSC. So I did not know about this service, and it was only due to my cousin that I came to know about this services, and I thought, okay, why not give it a shot? And then I developed interest in international politics, and that's how Indian Foreign Service was always my first choice whenever I gave mains an interview. So before I start with the question, I just want to share one brief incident with everyone just to tell you how important it is that the parents support you in this journey and how you should be thankful to your parents as well at the same time. So it was my fourth attempt last year, and my father was diagnosed with cancer, and he was given only 3 months, 3 months to live. And it was only during my mains that he was. This incident happened. So I was totally broken. I could not even focus on my studies, and I could not even go to see him because I did not want to, become that much emotional that I would not be able to give my mains as well. So the last day, I gave my mains. I went to see him, and I still remember telling him that, Father, I'll just hold on for another 6 months. I'll clear this time definitely. And unfortunately, he passed away in just 1 week after that. But he constantly supported me throughout this journey, and in that year itself, I cleared two exams, not only Indian Forest Service with All India Rank 10, but civil services as well with All India Rank 287. So somewhere that motivation, that factor, it was always there for me, my parents, but I did not find it, and it was only after my father passed away that I found that motivation. I don't know, maybe I was blind before. So always I want to say is you always respect your parents. They have supported you throughout in this journey for you. Always think of them and always give your best. And always, whenever you feel down in your journey, you always think of them and your aim that you want to achieve this exam. That's it. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, with the question answers.
So that's really great of you that despite all the, emotional phase that you were going through, you cleared the exam. And that's an inspiration, sir. And this was all my first question itself, which you answered yourself. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Sir, we came across that you were preparing for UPSC and you did a part-time job also, and also you were going for state scholarships at that time. So, sir, can you share that how you were managing both the things like the study for UPSC and even the part-time jobs side by side?
See, while I did not want to be a burden on my parents, so what I thought is I'll employ my skills, whatever that ha I have, and at the same time, it should not compromise my studies as well for you, civil services. So I thought, what's the best thing to do? Then I started taking up teaching jobs. Initially, I taught only 11th and 12th standard students. I used to teach different subjects to them. Later on, I started teaching civil services students as well. I used to teach international politics and at the same international relation, the international politics, and at the same time, I used to teach environment as well and geography. So how did I manage both work and this? Well, I made it sure that I prepared a proper timetable for the entire week, and I divided my time for the week in such a way that I gave equal amount of time to everything, be it newspaper reading, be it the general studies paper or be it the optional paper. And at the same time, the part-time work I used to do only for 4 days a week. So I would make sure that I wouldn't do it for more than 3 hours. So rest of the I used to study for 9 hours. Now everyone has different ways of studying. I found 9 hours to be complete and sufficient for me. So every day I fixed my targets and I used to complete those targets and balance my work and my targets in such a way that neither of them will compromise the other. So this is how I manage. I believe that you need a proper timetable. Without timetable, you cannot begin your preparation, or you cannot study at all. If you know that you have to spend this much amount of time for this particular subject, then only you would be able to give your best to that subject. And at the same time, you need to set up short-term goals as well as long-term goals. You need to know what you have to complete in a week. You need to know what you have to complete in a month. So I believe that is the best way to go forward.
Okay, sir. So timetable is one of the basic ingredients that one needs to have while they are preparing for UPSC.
Yeah.
Also, sir, since you went through the examination 4 times, can you please share your views that how the trend of prelims has been changing over time? Like what subjects are, having more weightage, sometimes they're having less weightage. What's the trend that is being followed right now, or it is going on right now?
When I gave my exam the first time, uh, all of a sudden, civil services, the UPSC asked current affairs in a vast amount. Like current affairs was formed like around 60 questions out of 100 in that
Right.
year. I think it was 2016. Yeah. So everyone was stumped because no one was prepared for it, for the current affairs. And well, luckily I did that year, and I scored around 148 in prelims that year. Next year, all of a sudden, everyone were hurrying for current affairs notes in the market, and they were preparing for current affairs. And UPSC being unpredictable public service commission as it is, the current affairs went down to 30 questions, and environment came up. So,
Okay.
you cannot predict which topic would be asked in what weightage every year it is changing. Last year also, if you see, 2018, it was ancient India and medieval India, which was asked in very good amount. Okay? And last year also, like economics questions are coming, geography is coming. So every year the trend of what UPSC can ask, how much questions they can ask, you cannot predict at all. So what I would suggest for the people is, do not leave anything. You have ample amount of time, and if you have limited book sources, you can prepare very well each and every subject. I know there are people who absolutely hate history, and I have met people who just skip ancient and medieval history, but you cannot do that. Understand this,
Yes.
that if you want to clear this exam, you cannot skip anything. One question can make a difference. Either you're in the list or you're out of the list, because each question cost you around 2.2 marks. There, one per question is 2 marks, and if it goes into the negative, you can imagine how much down you go. So I would suggest you prepare first a list of the sources that you want to study from. When you know properly which subject, which books you are going to read, and when you constantly revise them, you'll definitely complete that subject. What I have seen from my experience, I have seen my friends as well, is whenever a new book comes in the market, they run after it. Whenever your friend starts reading some other source, you look at it and you go, oh my God, he's reading from this. Maybe I should read from this as well. And you get tend to buy that as well. Don't do that.
Yes.
Let others read what they want to read. You focus on your sources, and make sure before beginning your preparation, you have those sources written down and constantly revise them. So this is what I'll say. You cannot predict UPSC. You have to be prepared with each and everything. You cannot leave anything.
Okay, sir. So, since you started this answer with the current affairs, we know that at times they form a bulky part. So, can you please throw some light on this, that what all areas the aspirants, they should cover for current affairs, and how many months, before they should, what I mean to say is that how many months before the examination, they should be covering for current affairs.
See, current affairs, I'll say you go for 18 months before the start of the prelims. Uh, 1 month before the prelims, you can skip that totally. Say, for example, now the prelims is in June 20, on June 27. So you can skip totally the May month, but before May, 18-month period current affairs you have to cover, because the trend is that UPSC is even asking questions from 2 years back in current affairs. So you cannot
Okay.
say that you cannot just rely on the past 1 year. You have to at least refer to 18 months of current affairs. Now, which all area to focus? See, in the newspapers, I'm sure everyone by now, when they start reading the newspaper, they know which all area to cover and which all area they don't need to cover. Like the politics section, you don't need to at all read it. You only need to read anything related to international relations. any science and technology related material, any new environment related material, all that it's only those particular things and economics related things. See, in economics especially, there are terms which come in the newspaper,
Yes.
some common terms which come in the newspaper, and these terms we tend to overlook them while reading. We don't read in depth about it. We just go, okay, okay, hoga kuch. But if you come across such terms, especially in economics, you need to find out about them by doing a Google search, because
Yes.
UPSC holds on to such kind of terms only and makes questions out of it. So you need to focus. You need to be very much. You need to read in between the lines while reading the newspaper, and you need to focus on such kind of terms as well, and you need to do Google search as well. And even in case of international relations, if you come across any groupings, anything which is in the currently in the news, say now Quad is in the news, go and do some Google search, find out about Quad, what exactly it is, how many countries are there, what exactly initiatives they are taking. Go across and do a Google search and find out about them. So this is how you should go about it. For me, I used to do that, and I would also suggest there are some websites available. I'm sure the aspirants know about these websites as well, where you get your daily current affair dose as well. So you can refer to those as well and do your current affairs. So this is how you'll basically do current affairs. For the newspaper, don't waste too much time on it. You should finish reading the newspaper within 1 hour, and after 1 hour of newspaper reading, in the evening, go to the websites which offer you the current affairs and note down those current affairs from there. You don't need to note down everything. Just note down those current affairs which you feel are really important and we cannot remember them. So you
Oh,
just note down those. So what will happen is you'll have a book of current affairs with you which are self-written. And
yes.
during the prelims, before the prelims, all you need to do is revise those notes. So that is how you should go about with the current affairs. And also
Oh,
monthly there is a compilation of current affairs which comes, and
yes,
there are
sir.
plenty in the market. ठीक है? I can put across those sources later on if needed, and you can read that as well. So that's it for the current affairs.
Okay, sir. So, sir, next thing I would like to say is that very few people get a chance to, serve two different, services. Like you were in Indian Forest Service, and now you were in Indian Forest Service, and now you are in Indian Foreign Service. So, sir, can you please tell the aspirants that what is the basic difference between both, with special emphasis on prelims and the mains, that how they both are different?
Yeah. Uh, Before I begin with explaining what exactly the difference is, I want to say that Indian Forest Service is absolutely beautiful service. There are many people who tend to overlook Indian Forest Service, and you need to, if you're a science background student, if you're engineering background student, if you are graduated from any of this, then you are eligible to apply for the Indian Forest Service. And it is a Group A service itself. You have the pay, perks, salary, everything equal to an IS. Obviously, the field area of work is different, but the facilities and everything is the same. And it is one of the best service because you get to work in the field as well. And if you love nature, if you love traveling, then this is one of the very much good services that you would love or enjoy it. So, what is the basic difference between the what we prepare for civil services and Indian Forest Service? See, the prelims is same. The difference comes in the mains. Now, what exactly is the difference in the mains? Before in the prelims, the cutoff for the civil services and Indian Forest Service is different. Indian Forest Service usually, since it is narrowed down to few graduation background and the vacancies are less, the cutoff is usually higher than what it is in civil services prelims. So usually the cutoff for the forest service is around 115, 114 for the general category students. It can be, 120 is on the safer side. So the mains we have two optional subjects for the Indian Forest Service. While in civil
Okay,
services
sir.
we have only one optional subject. And in forest services, both these optional subjects are technical in nature, considering that the Indian Forest Service itself is technical service. And what I would suggest in this case is there are options available for you from the pure science streams as well and engineering optionals as well. I would definitely 101% suggest that you take up one of the optionals as forestry. So one as forestry and another one based on what you see in the syllabus, how much you think you will be able to cover, the past question papers, then you select the other option. Another difference is there is an English paper as well, which is of 300 marks in Indian Forest Service. And this English
Okay.
paper, the marks are counted. In civil services, what we have is a English as a qualifying paper. It's not the same in Indian
Yes.
Forest Service. The English marks are counted. And lastly, we have a general knowledge paper in Indian Forest Service. In general knowledge paper, again, it is of 300 marks. And in this case, what we have in GS1, GS2, GS3 of civil services, all that is combined together in this general knowledge paper. But mostly the
Okay.
questions are of static nature rather than dynamic nature. Except for science and tech, all the questions are static in nature. And
Okay.
even that trend is slowly changing in Indian Forest Service. Even now in economics also they are asking dynamic questions in Indian Forest Service. But you get the trend. It's GS 1, 2, 3 combined of civil services in general knowledge paper. So that is the basic difference. And even in interviews as well, it is more technical in Indian Forest Service, the interviews, as compared to the civil services, because civil services is what we call as a generalist, and Indian Forest Service is more what we say as a specialist in this field. So
Okay.
that is the basic difference between both of them. And see, one thing I would suggest in such kind of optionals, which are like zoology, forestry, etc., which are like pure science streams and engineering background, you have to refer to the past 10 years question papers. What I have observed, and after observing and practicing how I cleared this exam, is that the questions tend to get repeated. After, say, a pattern, particular pattern of 3 to 4 years, the question tends to get repeated. So if you analyze the past 10 years question papers and solve them, and
Okay.
you prepare a notes of yourself by solving them before mains, you can just read those notes and go to the exam hall, and you'll find one or the other question getting repeated. 90% will get covered definitely. So that is how you go about it. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So, sir, now I would like to come for prelims examination of 2021. So, is it possible for aspirants to crack it in last 3 months by preparing really hard for it?
Yes, definitely. I'm sure there are. If you want me to say if a fresher can crack it in 3 months, I'm not sure about it. But if someone has been preparing for say 1 year, past 1 year, then definitely 6 months, 1 year, definitely you can give it like extra. You go into the fourth gear now, and you can
Yeah.
definitely clear this exam. And how to go about it? Maybe you have your next question, then I can tell about it. Yeah,
So yeah, you may tell that how we need to
right.
go about it.
Right. See, for the last 3 months, now 100 days, you divide your 100 days. This is my strategy. Everyone can have their own strategy, and they can modify accordingly by looking into other toppers' strategy as well. So, for the last 100 days, what I used to do was divide those 100 days into 40 days. So, for the initial 40 days, what I used to do is prepare a list of books that now I'm going to revise, not read, but revise, because I'm expecting this is for those who have already done revision at least 2 times. Okay, so you
Okay.
have read a specific list, and you need to read them, giving certain amount of days to them out of 40 days. Like say for example, polity, you read Lakshmikant. Obviously, there's no other thing you read for polity. That is the Bible of polity, and you have to read it very well. So Lakshmikant, you say give it 7 days. And 7 days is enough. If you have read twice before, then 7 days is enough. So you divide those 40 days in such a way that you give ample amount of time to each subject, dividing your 40 days into that. Plus, you also give time for current affairs, reading current affairs, and also for paper solving. So if it was me, how would I go about it? I would say that I will give one hour daily for newspaper. Do not leave newspaper reading. You have to read newspaper. Say for at least till if the exam is in June, at least read till April end. You can skip in May, but till April end, you read the newspaper. So 1 hour you read the newspaper, 3 hours you do revision of the general GS papers. So giving time, certain number of days to each subject. 2 hours you give to current affairs, and 4 hours
Yes.
you give to paper solving. Out of the 4 hours of paper solving, 2 hours should be for actual solving of the papers. You need to time while solving the papers, and 2 hours should be for checking the solution. Okay, you need to check your answers and also read the solution. Now, one thing very important, and this is like everyone has to do it, is when you actually check the solved papers, when you check your papers, you need to read the solution very carefully. What we tend to do is we overlook the solution that is given at the back and we don't read it properly. We just focus on solving the question part. See, important thing is not just solving the question paper and how much marks we are getting. That is not important. What is important is the solution that is given at the back will add to your knowledge. You need to read that question. You need to read the solution very carefully. It's not that the question will tend to get repeated as it is in the exam. So like people every year come out and blame vision कुछ काम का नहीं है, ये कुछ काम का नहीं है. That's not the case. ठीक है? The thing is the solutions which are given at the back, you read them and use that knowledge, apply that knowledge in any other type of question that may be related to it. So what you do is, no matter how much marks you gain in your test paper solving, when you read the solution properly, you'll get extra knowledge which you can apply in other questions which come in actual UPSC. And how many papers you need to solve? I'll say for the 60 days, solve 60 papers, daily one paper. 60 days, 60 GS papers, solve them. That much, that is how many I used to do. Some people do 15, 20. I don't think 15, 20 is enough. Considering the competition that is increasing day by day, and also the type of question they are asking, I don't think 15 to 20 GS papers are enough. You need to solve at least 60 GS papers, and you have ample amount of time to solve 60 GS papers. So even if you do one paper each day, 60 days, you'll complete 60 papers. So that is how you'll go with the GS papers, solving the GS papers. At the same time, you cannot overlook the CSAT papers. You need to also give time to the CSAT, especially those who think that they are not good in CSAT for the passage reading or solving LR sums or the actual arithmetic math sums. So you need to give time for the CSAT as well. And I'll give you this example. There were friends of mine who appeared for interview with me, and they next year when they appeared again for prelims, they could not even clear the prelims. That was because CSAT, they could not qualify the CSAT paper. So such is the importance of CSAT paper that you cannot overlook them. So when you go with the CSAT, you need to solve at least 10 papers, but what I would suggest is that 5 papers should be from the actual last 5 years of the UPSC. Because the trend of the CSAT paper is also changing. The type of question, especially the passages that they ask, those are also changing. So you need to be very well thorough with the meanings of the words such as corollary, what is the logical conclusion from this. All these words, when they come in the passage, they ask in the question. You need to be thorough with it, and for that you need to do a Google search right before solving this, understanding the need of the question, understanding the meaning of the terms, so that you can give proper justice to that question. So solve around 5 actual UPSC past question papers of CSAT plus 5 from any good test series. So this is what I will suggest for CSAT. So for the initial 40 days, focus on the revision. I'll say polity, Lakshmikant, give around 7 days. For geography, I'll say 11th NCRT, which is physical geography, and GC Leong. Also focus on mapping, which is very much important. You need to be thorough with mapping, especially with the regions which are in news. Say West Asia is all-time favorite of UPSC, but at the same time you cannot overlook South China Sea as well. So you need to focus on that as well. So give 7 days for that. This is my assumption. This is my assumption of giving 7 days. You can change accordingly to yours. History, modern history, you need to read Spectrum. For ancient and medieval, Lucent general knowledge book is there, and you have to read that, only the history part from the Lucent general knowledge book. I'll give it 6 days to complete history. One thing, if you haven't read NCRT 11th standard ancient and medieval India, now is the time to touch it, because you cannot skip it. Ancient and medieval India, I'm telling this to every aspirant again, no matter how much you hate it, you have to read it. So ancient and medieval India, if you haven't read NCRT 11th, you have to read that. For culture, I don't think anything extra needs to be done. Lucent will cover it. Ancient and medieval part also will cover it. For environment, Shankar IS, I'll give it 6 days. Science and tech is obviously current affairs. Economics, Shriram IS book is there. One printed version has come last year, which is really good, and I found it good. So you give it around 7 days. So if you and also self notes, whatever you have prepared throughout the year, the current affairs, give it 3 days. So this comes to around 40 days. So this is what you do in the initial 40 days. 1 hour of newspaper, 3 hours of GS revision, 2 hours of current affairs. 2 hours of current affair is what is available in the market, the monthly booklet of various classes. You can pick anyone. And also, there is one more thing. Sunya notes are there. Sunya notes are really good. You can refer to those as well for current affairs. And 2 hours for paper solving and 2 hours for checking and reading the solution. So total 10 hours of study each day. I'm sure 10 hours, there are people who study more than this, but for me, I think 10 hours should be sufficient. And also give around 8 hours for proper sleep, because if you don't rest yourselves, and if your mind is not feeling fresh, then you won't be able to recollect stuff. You don't won't be able to take in new stuff. So 8 hours of sleep daily is you need to have. And also see, this is for 40 days. Next 40 days, what you do is you focus on subjects which you found very much difficult, and you need to just revise those in the next 40 days. No, nothing else, just revise those for the next 40 days and continue with your paper solving as it is. And finally, for the last 10 days, 10 to 15 days, there are solved 30 years question papers of prelims of UPSC. Solved 30 years, last 30 years question papers of prelims. You need to look at only the solution, because many of the questions do tend to get repeated. One or two questions do tend to get repeated from the past 30 years. And if
Okay,
even
sir.
if it doesn't get repeated, the solution that is given, you can apply the solution to some other question as well. Plus, you revise your self notes, plus you revise your current affairs. So this is what I would suggest for the next 100 days. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So also, since you mentioned that test series play an important role for the prelims, so how much a person or an aspirant should try scoring in the test series itself, and how they should avoid the negative marking which they face at times?
Sorry, I lost you in the middle. Can you please repeat your question?
So, as you said that test series play an important role for prelims. So, how many marks should an aspirant try to score when they are, giving the test series, and how they should avoid the negative marking?
Right. See, if an aspirant in a test series gets around 90 to 100, 90 to 100 marks, I think it is good enough, because in the
Okay.
actual UPSC paper would not be to such a level of the test series, and you'll always consider 5-10 marks extra from the test series marks. So 90 to 100 is a good enough range. But if you are aiming for Indian Forest Service as well, then you need to really score high, and you need to have a focus on 120. Now, one mantra that I used to follow, I never limited myself to having a particular target of marks. I always used to think that I have to score more than 120, always more than 120. Do not limit yourself saying I'm from OBC, I'm from SC, I'm from ST, so I need to score only this much marks. I don't need to score that many marks. Then what happens is you limit your capacity to that much level. Do not limit your capacity. You can score definitely more than 120. Always aim higher. So that is one thing. Now, in actual UPSC paper, what I always used to do, I used to follow 2 rounds of answers, 2 rounds of marking the answers. In the first round, I used to look at the questions which I can relatively answer in one go. I don't need to think over it. Okay, this is the answer, A, B, okay, whatever this. But I did not mark it directly into the answer sheet. I used to mark it the second round. Sorry.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So
No problem.
in the second round, what we do is we look at the questions which we skipped in the first round, which it was difficult, and we look at the answers and we try to eliminate the options. See, whenever you can eliminate two options, then only you attempt that questions. If you cannot even eliminate two options, then you do not attempt that question, because that can go wrong for you, and it will result in more negative marks. So one mantra for avoiding negative marks is try to eliminate at least two options. When there are two options left, it is much more easier for you to narrow down on the correct answer. So in the second round, you focus on those questions which were difficult, and try to eliminate and come down to the two options. And then you look at the questions which were previously you had marked in the question paper as well, and both of them you mark in the answer sheet. So this is how you go about with 2 rounds of marking the questions. And also at the same time, see, always, like how many questions to attempt to avoid negative and all. Do not look at this way. If you are from a general category, always think of answering more than 80 questions, because then you're on a safer side. Even if more, say 20 questions go into negative, even then you're on the safer side if you have around 85 questions attempted. So always, if you're from a general category, go for more than 80, 85 questions. And also at the same time, again, I'm repeating, if you eliminate two options, only then attempt that question. If otherwise, do not risk it at all. It will go into negative. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So next, I would like to ask you, sir, since you're a biotechnologist by profession, and if we see that in recent trends, more questions are coming from environment, science, and technology. So, sir, how can one prepare for the syllabus of these two subjects properly?
Right. See, I've seen the science and tech question, and to be honest, for a pure science background student, some of the questions will be very much easy. But what is happening is the tech questions, the technology questions, which are very much trickier. And I'm sure
Yeah.
like everyone gets it wrong one way or the other, because there are multiple answers to that question, and all the options seem correct. So you do not know which one to mark to. See, what you can do for science and tech is whenever you come across some new technology in the Hindu newspaper, read about it, do wiki search, do Google search. That is how I used to do. I used to prepare separate notes for science tech. I always used to, whenever something, say for example, 5G, 5G came into the market. So this was
Yes, sir.
relatively new. So what is 5G? How does it work? Everything. I used to do Google search. I used to find out, read some articles about it, and I used to prepare separate notes for it. So this is how you can attempt the technology questions. Whenever you come across something new in the newspaper, you can be very much sure that UPSC person who is setting the question paper is also seeing the same thing. So you need to find out exactly what that technology is. So, and you need to
Oh,
read about it. So that is how you can cover the technology. As far as the science part goes, see, when you read the basics, NCRTs and all, you can cover the basics of the science part. And it's the science part questions are not coming that much as much as technology questions are coming. So for that, do Google search current affairs from various booklets and your daily current affairs. And I think that should cover it. Even for environment part, I would suggest there are various organizations which every year UPSC tends to ask one or the other organization. Whenever you come across any such organization in the newspaper, you do a Google search. Do not rely on some classes to cover it. Do not rely on some website to cover it. For science and tech and for environment, you come across any new term. Even for economics, you come across any new term, any new organization, you do a Google search, you prepare separate notes for it. So this is how you should go about it.
okay, sir. So, continuing your last part of the answer, I would like to present my last question for the session. We know that economic survey and budget, they are also an important part of the subject of the syllabus. So, sir, how can the aspirants prepare for that particular subject also properly?
Sorry, I lost you. Did you ask about the budget and economic survey, right?
So, budget and economic survey.
Yeah. So see, for the budget and economic survey, you do not need to read the entire bulky thing, what comes into the market. This is what I would
Yes.
suggest. Acha, one thing before this also, I never read all those bulky books which everyone tells to read, be it Majid Hussain, be it the Savinder Singh. Okay, I never read all these bulky things, and also the economic survey and budget. I never read the full reports at all. Okay, you might think that no, 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 how can he do that? See, trust me, you don't need to be a specialist right now. You just need to know exactly what it is, what is there in it, and for that you can read a summary which is easily available in the market. Okay, so any summary of any classes you pick up from the market, you read that, try to understand what exactly it is trying to say, and especially the new terms, the new terms in economics that come out every year. There are some jargons which the government comes out with every year while
Yes,
announcing
sir.
different schemes and everything. So you need, when you read about that in the summary, you try to find out more about it, what exactly it is. Again, do Google search, find out from different sources online. Okay, but you don't need to read the entire report. Just read the normal things, which are the summary which is available in the market, and do not go for the big books. I'm telling you that this big books will lot of amount of your time. What gets covered in NCRT won't get covered through this big books. And trust me, UPSC, the source for their answers is this NCRTs, and it's not some big reference books. So NCRT you need to read. There are people who have asked me this question: can we skip the NCRTs and directly go to the big reference books? I'll say no. You have to read the NCRT. Yeah,
It's a must.
yeah.
So, sir, here we come towards the end of our session. Thank you so much for joining and providing our aspirants with 100-day strategy. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope we see you in the next session and really soon. And our aspirants, I hope you might have got just that how you need to prepare in this last moment. All the best from Guide IAS, and thank you so much, sir, once again for joining with us.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. And for all the aspirants, if you have any questions, I'm always there to help you around. There's my Instagram page as well. You can post questions to me there. There's a Twitter page as well. You can post questions to me there. And whenever I have time, I'll reply to those to reply to your queries as well. Thank you very much to Guide IS for having me on this platform. And thank you. Yeah. Bye.
So it's a pleasure. Okay, sir. So I would like to end the IGTV right now. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.